Continuing to Episode 6, Sunraku now encounters a fellow comrade who also enjoys trashy games, the Pencil Warrior. In SLF, he goes by the nickname Arthur Pencilgun, and it seems he's trying to hunt down Sunraku. Before delving into the discussion of that girl, there's a trashy game that needs to be explained called Unite Rounds. Sunraku has also played that game before. This game is often referred to as the end-of-the-world robbery simulation. Initially, the game had players taking on the role of knights defending the vulnerable kingdom from monster attacks. The game also featured a cooperative virtual reality MMO concept. However, due to the game's excessive pursuit of realism, the chances of finding items there became very low. Thanks to that annoying feature, people became lazy to play it. Moreover, beginner quests like collecting herbs required players to search through the grass for 12 hours just to obtain the required number of plants. Especially if they needed higher quality herbs, the chances of finding them became even more challenging. Finally, because all these things were too troublesome, the players decided to raid instead. Rather than searching for herbs in the grass, they preferred to attack NPC shops or steal from players who had attacked shops. In the midst of this chaotic situation, one player managed to conquer the kingdom using various tricks. That player was the Pencil Warrior. He had an ideology of sharing wealth and found items. In that moment, the Pencil Kingdom was born. At one point, Sunraku and Katsuo infiltrated the Pencil Kingdom palace that had been taken over by the Pencil Warrior. Initially, the goal of this game was to protect the kingdom from monster attacks. Now, the players aimed to defeat the true demon king named Pencil Warrior, and at that moment, Sunraku and Katsuo intended to defeat him. Apparently, the Pencil Warrior had been watching their every move. He was impressed to see them turning rebels into bait and infiltrating. By the way, a player who can defeat the Pencil Warrior will be called a Knight of Revolution. Sunraku himself stated that his battle with the Pencil Warrior ended in a draw in Unite Rounds. However, the situation is different now. Arthur Pencilgun has a much higher level. Nevertheless, it seems Sunraku can still dodge and block Arthur's attacks. In the midst of the battle, Arthur paused for a moment out of curiosity about Sunraku's current level. If Sunraku had just defeated Mud Digger, Arthur estimated his level to be around 30. He was impressed that Sunraku could evade attacks despite being at that level. Sunraku retorted that he could move freely in this game, unlike in trashy games. Meanwhile, Animelia had been watching all along because he didn't expect the second member of the Ashura Kai Killer clan to come here. Animelia mentioned that Arthur was known as the Giant Killer. He earned that nickname for frequently killing top players. Sunraku, on the other hand, taunted Arthur. He said that Arthur was more fitting as the giant being killed in the dystopian kingdom. Suddenly, they started taunting each other while fighting. On the other side, it seemed Immol was panicking because his human form wouldn't last much longer. Arthur informed Sunraku that their meeting wasn't just a personal matter. The leader of the Ashura Kai clan wanted to deliver a message to Sunraku. Sunraku had to choose between surrendering unique scenario information or being chased until he got bored. Although Sunraku had managed to handle Arthur's attacks so far, she still had better equipment and a higher level. Suddenly, Sunraku realized that Arthur seemed unwilling to let him approach the gate. She seemed to intentionally attack as Sunraku was about to enter the city. Sunraku became suspicious that Arthur might be at a disadvantage if he killed a player in a crowded place. Arthur did admit that she wanted to avoid that, but she was confident that Sunraku wouldn't be able to get past her. On the other hand, Animelia attempted to approach Immol, who appeared to be in a panic. As soon as Animelia touched him, Immol had transformed into his animal form. This surprised Animelia greatly. Sunraku hadn't expected Immol to change back at a time like this. When Sunraku shifted his gaze, Arthur immediately attacked him. However, Sunraku used a repel counter and kicked Arthur far away. Sunraku then called for Immol to join his body and sprinted towards the city gate with all his might. Even though he had been discovered, Arthur remained confident because she could run faster than Sunraku. However, while trying to chase, Arthur was blocked by Animelia. He wouldn't allow anyone to harm the cute bunny that Sunraku was carrying. Sunraku was greatly relieved by this. He just needed to enter the city and then go to Rabatuza through the teleportation gate. No one would be able to chase him there. Unfortunately, it turned out that the members of the Ashura Kai clan who had come weren't just Arthur. There were 4 other players waiting in front of the city gate. By the way, Arthur considered herself lucky because she could confront the leader of the monster photography SSU clan, who had never been interested in player conflicts. It seemed that Animalia was a wizard-type player. He attacked Arthur with powerful 5-element magic. However, Arthur appeared to absorb the magic and then reflected it back at Animalia. The magic recited by Animalia had a poison element, and now he was affected by it himself. His HP was down to 8 and decreasing further. Animalia was clearly puzzled as to why his magic had turned against him. It turned out that Arthur had been harassed by a player killer who was a wizard, so she already knew that wizard attacks were quite troublesome. That's why Arthur brought the straw karma doll as a precaution. The doll was a one-time use item that could reflect all magic. Meanwhile, Sanraku was still struggling against the 4 players blocking his path. He had a plan to target the man who had underestimated him first. Not because of anything else, but Sanraku believed he could still dodge the swings of the man's big sword without using skills. However, the problem was how to damage a higher-level player with good armor. Suddenly, another player appeared out of nowhere. This player used a very powerful skill and immediately defeated one of the 4 assassins. Upon closer observation, the player was wearing luxurious all-white armor. In SLF, they called her the Maximum Explosive Force, Attack Master with the nickname Siger Zero. However, from previous incidents we know that this player is Ri, the girl who has a crush on Rakuro. Before this, Ri had been very upset because she couldn't find Rakuro in SLF. Even though Mana had informed her that Rakuro always used the nickname Sunraku, she couldn't find him because Rakuro had passed the starting city. All this time, Ri had wanted to approach Rakuro by discussing the game. However, the games Rakuro played were very different for Ri. She felt that the games Rakuro played were unique and too difficult for her. Ri had never been able to find a game that she could play together with him. But now that Rakuro was playing SLF, Ri didn't want to miss this golden opportunity. After that, she put on her virtual reality gear and started playing SLF again. When she first entered, Ri, or Siger Zero, received a message from Siger 100. For some reason, Siger Zero seemed very surprised when she read the contents of the letter. She immediately left the inn for her journey outside. As usual, Siger Zero was always scrutinized by other players as she passed by. It turns out the message was about Siger 100 asking Siger Zero to postpone her personal search. Currently, there was a player who had caught Siger 100's attention, and Siger Zero was asked to find that player. Siger 100 also explained that the player was approximately near Secondil or maybe already in Third Rima. This player had a talking Vorpal bunny dressed in attire. The player's appearance was quite unique, wearing a Persa bird mask and had the Lycan mark on their body. His nickname was Sunraku. Unbeknownst to Siger 100, Sunraku was the player Siger Zero was searching for. After leaving the Secondil city area, Siger Zero immediately used a skill to speed up her pace. Her speed turned out to be very high even though she was wearing armor from head to toe. What else could she do? Siger Zero had to hurry because Siger 100 had informed her that several clans had made contact with Sunraku. One of them was the Ashura Kai assassin clan. Even though Siger Zero had to kill other players, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If she came as a player who protected him from the assassins, she could have a chance to talk to Sunraku. And someday, Ri hoped to talk to Rakuro directly in the real world. Meanwhile, Arthur didn't expect Sunraku's battle to become so intense. Nevertheless, it seemed that Arthur was confident that the 4 assassins wouldn't be able to defeat Sunraku. She became even more convinced after delving into the SLF combat system. Sunraku's individual skills honed by trashy games from various genres were more valuable than unique items or high statistics, and that was the greatest weapon in SLF. By the way, Arthur also heard the news that Katso had started playing SLF. With their combination, it seemed that Arthur had a plan to execute. In the dust that obscured Arthur's view, she finally realized that Siger Zero was beside Sunraku. After the leader of the monster photography Estasu clan, now Sunraku had also brought in the attack master. Arthur seemed very grateful to meet Sunraku. Suddenly, Animalia, who was on the brink of death, said something. He mentioned that one straw karma doll could only reflect 5 magic attacks because its usefulness was considered too great. Animalia then produced a different magic staff, which was his secret weapon. It's possible that the staff could unleash magic attacks with more than 5 elements.